Let's start.
Good evening. You're watching the Policy Times Unleashing India Global Web Summit Series. The Global Web Summit Series has taken the Policy Times policy advocacy activism into a complete different league with experts coming from different domain talking on diverse issues of nation building. Now, this episode, which is chaired by Dr. P. Shekhar, has really taken the Policy Times ambition into a complete different league. And the topic that we have chosen today is also of paramount importance in the context of nation building. So, post COVID, as COVID has changed the whole world, and post COVID, it is also going to be very interesting to see how things are emerging, because maybe many industries have reopened and into a full scale, but education is also a sector which is still not properly opened, and different institutions are taking individual decisions. No clear directives from governments as to how to do that. But coming back to the real issue, our agenda since last, I think, 8 months, 8 to 9 months since COVID, Policy Times has given excessive importance to the context of education. And we have done more than, I think, 200 programs in education. The last one was World Education Conference, which attracted speakers and educators from diverse fields and across the world. Now, there are three things we have as objective. If any nation really wants to be a prosperous nation, it has to have the world-class education infrastructure in place. Without having world-class infrastructure, no country can even dream to be the superpower or best or prosperous nation of the world. When we aim to be the when we aim to establish one of the best or world-class education infrastructure, then it also needs very high-level attention and of the highest leadership. So, coming back to the context of India, India might have taken the one of the most important initiatives in the forms of national education policy 2020 in the field of education to reorient it, to transform it. The budget which has recently been presented, which was recently presented on the first phase, did not give much clarity as to how NEP 2020 will be achieved. And the NEP committed 6% of budget and GDP contribution to education, which was not achieved and announced in this. In fact, the education budget was reduced. That is one concern we have with regards to government's attention and initiative. But education is also a subject matter. So we would also need to see how states are acting towards education. Delhi, like state, has done tremendous work, Tamil Nadu and Kerala. We need to see that. Policy Times has three core objectives to work into education or contribute in the education sector. One, cross-border education exchange. So we want to connect India with the whole world and exchange between educators of different countries to understand each other, to learn from each other, to collaborate and benefit each other. The second is school-university connect. There is a huge gap between schools and higher education institutions, universities. This gap is the biggest barrier for children to make careers. So we want seamless connect between schools and universities through all our activities. The third is education industry connect. So we want education institutions to be seamlessly equally connected with industry, because industry or entrepreneurship is the end goal. So how industry and education can be connected in between skill development comes into play. So with this, I really want to hand over this floor to Dr. P. Shekhar, chairman of this show, of this series. And we would be very happy to hear a combination of two speakers coming, one from academia and other from industry. So Dr. Shekhar, over to you.
Thank you, Akram. Technically, this will be almost the 74th session. We started in a very low key in May, and without a break, weekly twice this is going on. On education alone, this will be almost the 6th or 7th session. Education is given its own full importance. Now, before I start and introduce the speakers, I will have a small presentation. As you all know, the topic today is future higher education landscape for long-term prosperous India for national reincarnation. Okay. Now, what do we really mean by these complex wording? The new policy has been announced, extremely well-received policy. And like Akram said, there may be few questions being asked. How much budget? How much this thing? Yes, there are answers built into the whole thing because now education is being more liberalized. It is more come out of it is being made to come out of government's grip. So it is being so naturally the budget from government may have to go down, but the budget for education will be far higher than what is going on till now. Now, coming to the basic crux of education, higher education, the need of education, the need of this thing, we need it from various point of view. To name it, a country's definition is based on the education, and for that, yes, India does have the numbers which are really good, the numbers which have done real good justice. If you go to any advanced country today, most of the people out there sitting at the highest post are educated in India. So on any account, I would like also our speakers to cover that why this is not getting reflected in the type of reports which come. In any report, in the global report, India doesn't even appear in the top 100. But the way the number of CEOs and others come from our own education institution, it should come in the top 5 to top 10. Even if it is below 10, it is not something good. It is not a reflection of proper facts. And I'm sure here there are two experts, one from industry, one from academia. One has to address it that we should not allow people to just take away the credit which is due to you. But when we say credit, it is not a credit without any gaps. We have a lot of gaps and we need to fill those gaps. So yes, there was a time when India was only famous for students going abroad. Today, a lot of foreign students are in India. From students from even advanced countries, students from developing countries, students from this, students from various. While talking of all this thing, this one small popular slide I like to always present that to know what is India is. India is almost 206 countries put together in terms of population. India is 1.3 billion people, okay, the second largest in the world. And it has got reasonably good area, reasonably good water, reasonably good environment, and extremely good and intellectually sound people. In respect to education, we were one of the first people in the world to set up education institutions almost 3,000 years ago. And even before that, we were all famous as in people with knowledge, people who want to give knowledge. Now, this whole series we have started because of the small slide which I'm presenting. I'm using the word small, but it is devastatingly small in terms of the devastation which it has done. It is very small, a small thing called COVID, which is invisible, which is something which even if it has affected less than 1% of the population, it has brought the whole 100% of the economy down. It has brought everybody into their knees. It has brought the people confidence down. It has brought the family values down, and it has brought so many things. And now slowly things are getting back, and people are realizing that maybe some mistakes has happened, and who did it, what they did it is not the concern. We should see how we can go back, and that's why we are calling it reincarnation. We are also using a favorite terminology. This is a World War III because we are just coming out of World War without any bombs being burst. So many of these things are pertaining to actual sustainable education. And through a system which I call as secured governance, it will become self-sustained education, and which also I'll explain when that in just a few minutes. So these are all various facts and figures in terms of the various percentage of people who are growing up the ladder in engineering, um, IT, and so many other fields. Now, 2020 education policy is again it's a periodic policy. It will keep changing this thing. And this is something which is even making education much more liberal. We had Vice Chancellor Bombay University himself coming on the show saying that how good it is for education, how nice it makes their life good. Today we can have any student stating into any complex combination, which are all possible now. Previously, it was not possible. And now the question of how academicians take it, how industries welcome it, and how both combine and make a student's life a much better value proportion is there. But otherwise, whether we are like living to eat, eating to live, whether we are getting educated for knowledge or getting educated for a job or getting educated for the salary in the job. These are all complex questions which the student keeps on struggling around. So these reforms are there, and these reforms gives flexibility. These reforms gives the type of innovation which is there. Now, this secure governance is the one which will make education totally self-sustained. Education is one field where you tend to give education to a child. It starts giving result after almost 25 years. So this is a self-sustained system. It can give immediate results. How immediate results? Not that there's any black magic in it. It plans it in such a way that an educator and a commercial will go somewhere hand in hand. Educator will go along with its own alumni hand in hand. Educator along with innovators will go hand in hand. Educators who are benefited by education, they will go hand in hand, but keeping the education in a separate compound, separate entity. Then what happens? There's a continuous flow of funds, because of which education is something where we need to fund. So that funding portion and the technology portion and the type of teachers which have to come, type of teachers which have to keep on getting upgraded, the type of industrialization, all are taken care by the proper use of secured governance. And that way, many institutes are doing. Yes, in this particular thing, I have written a huge range of books, including one on education, and we take care of how to do, what to do, and so on and so forth. Now, today, we have two very, very eminent speakers. We have purposely chosen one from academic and one from industry, and that to financial. The person, that is one Lakshmi and one Saraswati is there in front of us. So one is in hardcore academic man. Of course, he had come from the industry, but for last almost 2 decades, he's in the academic side. And that is Professor R. Gopal, and he's also director of one of the most reputed institute called D.Y. Patil, which has got presence in many places in India, and a large number of very, very good students are there in that institute. And the institute is famous for giving extremely good knowledge, extremely good, and he himself is a pioneer in this field, with or without his present position. And second is Mr. R. Sai Prashath. He's a global financial expert. He only deals in billions of dollars. He has agreed to come on a small show to make his ideas to the world on how academic, and presently with this new policy coming in picture, what is the expectations of industry, what are the expectations of a financial sector, what is the way forward by which things can be made better. We should make India a glorious country, India a superpower, as a super achiever, so to say. Superpower does not mean in battle and guns. With mind we can win so many things, and that is what happens when we have a good educational and academic setup. So with that, let me welcome Professor Gopal, and then once he has I would like to call upon Gopal to.
Yeah.
Let me see if I can get this sharing of the screen, sir.
Yeah, you can share the screen, sir. You have the rights to share.
You have the rights.
At the center bottom, you can see share screen option. At the bottom, sir. At the bottom, yeah. There is a share screen.
Is that visible, sir, now?
No,
not yet.
So then there will be another screen. You have to click share option there also.
Yeah. Now it has started. Yes. Now you can see.
Yeah. So good evening, Shekhar Saab. Good evening, Akram. Good evening, Saib. And all the delegates who are there on YouTube, on Instagram, Facebook, etc. A very good evening to all of you all. The topic given to me today has been on future higher education landscape to build a long-term prosperous India in the light of NEP 2020. So the roadmap which I'm really proposing is we will talk on the important aspects of NEP, the opportunities available under NEP. Shekhar also mentioned and Akram also mentioned that we would like to be one of the leading global hubs, but then there are issues, there are challenges. And what are the strategies to be adopted? And if we want to become a Nalanda of the world, as Akram and Shekhar were mentioning, then we need to follow certain important strategies to attract foreign students. And that is what I would like to talk today upon. The NEP 2020 talks about 23 important, and I say very important, highlights. And what are they? A quick glance: all HEIs will become multidisciplinary institutions. Very important, all universities shall now be known as universities. And why this is important is because some are called state universities, some are called deemed to be universities. And people abroad, when we go there, they say, what do you mean by deemed to be university? Are you a university or are you not? And this is therefore creating a lot of problem. All universities shall have a 3-year or a 4-year program. And very important, today, I cannot move from one university to another university and take my credits along. So the NEP 20 has created an academic bank of credits through which transfer of credits is possible. And then HEIs will be empowered to decide the fee structure within guidelines. Currently there are really a good shortage of teachers. And with 1 to 10 ratio, for one teacher for every 10 students ratio, it has become really very problematic. And more so because ultimately the student has to go to the industry. And what many of us in the teaching field talk is from the academic point of view, and there is hardly any link between what we teach and what is really happening in the industry. And when we try to call people from the industry, there are challenges coming in. And the second important thing is with the ratio of 1:20, that could ease a lot of faculty shortage that is there. All teachers must undergo continuous professional development. And Shekhar was talking about linking the school to the universities. And this link is possible through the B.Ed program for the teachers. And therefore it has been said that all universities will conduct a 4-year B.Ed program. PhD students will have to undergo teaching, and they have to undertake minimum number of hours of teaching. I will come back to this infrastructure point of view a bit later on, but there is a shortfall in the industry, as far as in the education industry, as far as having proper infrastructure. And the NEP 20 says we should have smart classrooms. And this is where I think SAI's help would be very, very important, because for having these smart classrooms, money is required, and SAI will be the one man who can provide us the funds that we require. All HEIs will give emphasis on holistic development. Industry-institute interaction is very, very important. And this is something which the NEP 2020 has said. But I have my doubts whether this is really feasible or possible, which says all allopathic students must have a basic understanding of Ayurveda, naturopathy, Unani, Siddha, homeopathy, etc., and vice versa. Mr. Shekhar and Akram both talked about India becoming a global hub. So top 100 universities will be allowed to set universities abroad in India. and 100 universities from India will be allowed to set up universities abroad. And transparency is something which is the key. And therefore, all HEIs will have a board of governors which will consist of highly competent and dedicated personnel. And today, we have a large number of statutory bodies. And what one says, the other doesn't agree. What the other says, this one doesn't agree. There is no proper synchronization among all of them. And therefore, the NEP 2020 says that all these statutory bodies will be linked together under one body called as NERA, NHERA, that is National Higher Education Regulatory Authority. And very, very important, it says the budgetary funding to be raised to 6% of the GDP. Unfortunately, the budget which came up right now talks about only 3% of the GDP. And in fact, there's a marginal decrease between what was provided last year and what has been provided this year. But so be it. So be it. The NEP 2020, is a fantastic one. It provides a lot of opportunities. And it provides opportunities to all our very important stakeholders. I'm not considering the student here because it's more on the relationship of the HEI and all other stakeholders like the financing body, like the book writers, like the educational teaching providers, etc., etc. Now, I want to spend a little bit time on trying to explain to you what are the opportunities that are available. The NEP lays a very great emphasis on linking of industry partners for research-based funding. And it's very, very important. It's very, very important because many of the research that we do today are remaining with the university and it does not get linked to the industry, number one. Number two, the link with the industry partners is extremely important. And why? Because after all, the student goes to the industry for placement. Though Shekhar pointed out that the average placement offered or average placement, job placement obtained is only about 45 to 50%. But many of the industries today are complaining that the guys who come out of the industry are not industry ready, who come out of the education are not industry ready. And therefore, you need to link. And how do you link? You can link by several methods. One, we can have a system which we also have. We have a 2-month summer training program where the student is expected to work in the industry, number one. Number two, we have a guest lecture or an enlightenment session. And what is this enlightenment session or a guest lecture? We call people from the industry to the college or to the university and ask them to deliver a lecture to the students on what exactly is happening. And then the teacher tries to link what is happening in the industry with what is happening in the academic world so that the student gets a feeling of how industry operates. At the end, when he goes there, it becomes a little bit easier for him. Number three, what we also do is, while the session is going on, we have what is called as live projects, where we ask the students to go to the industry twice a week and work out there, meet the HR guys, meet the marketing guys, so that you are actually having a limited hands-down approach to what industry requires. Now, this is what we are doing at DY Patil, but not many education institutions are doing it. and therefore it creates a lot of problems at the when the students go to the industry, and that is what is important. Number one. Number two is today what is important is data analytics, artificial intelligence, blockchain, robotics, skill-based technologies. Now, this is something which is the need of the hour. While you require the basics of C, Java, etc., but the world is moving towards these type of systems, these type of information technology, and that is important. Second, I can only tell you one of my students has tied up with IMC, that is the Indian Merchant Chambers, which is a body of all MSMEs. And she is working on the project, trying to find out what is the contribution of women empowerment on wealth creation and on employment. That means she's talking about women entrepreneurship and wealth creation and employment. Now, this is something which the industry asked us to do it, and therefore she's working on that. And I think this will be something which is really going to be a big way, because it will throw up light as to how we as academics can empower women to move into women entrepreneurship, which is the need of the hour. Integration of teacher education and offer a 4-year program. Very important. Very important. Measurement of faculty performance through research performance based. This is what NEP 2020 has suggested. Second, quality of teaching can be increased because we have large number of PhDs coming in. Universities have the opportunity to publish high quality research in journals like Scopus Index or UGC approved journals. And very important, top 100 universities have the chance to set up campuses, set up universities in foreign countries, and also we have an opportunity to attract foreign students to India. You know, Shekhar pointed out something like about 35, 40,000 students coming to India. But in my opinion, for a country of our size and with so many number of universities, so many colleges, we should be talking in terms of 3 million foreign students coming to India, not 30 and 35,000 foreigners coming to India. Content and book providers, the opportunity to produce high quality textbooks with Indian case studies. Very important, because today we do not have a large number of Indian case studies, and we generally tend to use case studies which are in foreign countries. And believe me when I tell you, my students asked me, sir, what is Walmart? What is Kroger? Because many of them have not heard of these, retailers. But you talk to them about big business, you talk to them about GeoMart, they are all well aware of it. And we have a very few case studies pertaining to that. It also provides an opportunity to educational technologists to collaborate for skilling programs and offering joint certificate programs. In one of the universities in our group, we've tied up with an organization from Bangalore, which does end-to-end and provides skill-based technology to the students that are there. Exactly similar scheme is available for vocational. Now, you have seen most of our private players, they are governed by the limitations or the guidelines issued for fee structure. But the expectation from the student is very high. And this is where financial organizations can come in Not only that, not only that, banks and other financial organizations can provide educational loans, scholarships to the meritorious and needy students, maybe at some rate of interest, which is not so high as it is today. Today it's around 12% interest rate, which to my mind is extremely high. And there's a whole lot of guidelines which have to be followed before a loan can be given to the student. So, lot of financial institutions can think on those lines. Now, COVID has taught us many things. The offline courses are no longer valid. When I say no longer, because of COVID, we cannot do the offline courses. Of course, with the vaccination coming in, maybe we will have a hybrid system. And it is here that the ICT provider, that means the information and communication technology providers, can help in providing the digital infrastructure that is required for all of this. And lastly, foreign universities can help by setting up campuses in India. Number one, collaborating with HEIs for starting new programs. And there is one more very important thing which foreign universities and HEI can work together to have a win-win situation, and that is the twinning program. And what is a twinning program? The student does 1 or 2 or 3 semesters in India, and the remaining semesters he goes to the US or UK or Singapore, and he does it out there, and the certification is joint between the two of them. Now, a lot of such things we can do, but I only highlighted some of the very, very critical and crucial opportunities that are available and which are thrown by NEP 2020. But this is not easy to follow. There are challenges which are there. And what are the challenges? At the macro level, one of the biggest challenges is funding. At the other level, the image of India is also a big challenge. And why do I say that? Oh, it's unsafe for women. And there are too many political, what shall we say? Let me use the word riots, for want of a better word, which disturbs the entire situation in India. India is not known as an educational hub. And when you look at the top 200 universities in the world, hardly there are 2 or 3 Indian HEIs or Indian universities which are there. In fact, the ISAT examination, which was conducted by the government of India to attract foreign students, attracted only about 3,000, 4,000 students. Why? Is there a lacuna in marketing? I do not know. And we talk in terms of destination India, make in India style, but there is no campaign which is started by the government of India which says study in India. And I think that is something which is very much required. Job issues are also there at the micro level. One of the very important thing is the infrastructure. You know, when you go to some of the HEIs, the infrastructure that is there is I wouldn't say pathetic. That is, let me say, slightly even below average. If you measure in terms of the classrooms, if you measure in terms of washrooms which are available, if you measure in terms of the general overall layout, yeah, there is no foreign desk available in India. How do we get students from abroad? Now, when my daughter went to the US for high studies, or to UK, not to US, to UK, to higher studies, what she told me was, Dad, as soon as I landed, as soon as I landed in Leeds, I had somebody to pick me up from the Leeds bus stop, took me to the university, took me to my room, showed me my room, showed me certain basic things which are there, made me a little bit comfortable. Now, such a thing is not there at all. And this is something which is very important. And when the guy comes to India, he has to fetch for himself and look at all the things. He has to get a student visa, that's fine. It's there all over. But then he has to immediately go to the local police station, register himself, and there's a huge lot of halla gulla which goes out there. Now, and there is nobody to guide him. And these are some things which are extremely important. We do not have global faculties. And if we have to have global faculties, the cost is very high. And why? Because many of the global faculties who come to India, they say we want business class ticket, we want to stay in five-star hotel. Where do I go for all of this? And it becomes really, really very, very, it does not become really cost effective to call some of these global faculties out here. Technology adoption is also something which is very critical. What can I do? What can I do? While NEP 20 gives me a golden opportunity to have multidisciplinary, that means you can start a medical, dental, arts, science, commerce, etc., all together. You can have interlinking of all of them together. We can have a 4-year B.Ed program. We can have a 4-year undergraduate program, which is a must because global institutions do not recognize the 3-year undergraduate program that we have. And very important, the academic curriculum today is quite old. There is, many of the HEIs do not have a link to what is really happening in the industry. And therefore you need a board of studies, which will have members from the industry coming in, members from the teaching community coming in, and the syllabus, the curriculum needs to be revised at least once in 3 years. Now this is something which is not happening. And therefore to that extent, we need to revise the curriculum on a very, very regular basis. And today, what is industry saying? When I talk to the industry people, they say, Gopal, when I view a student, I weigh 20% weightage is given to him for understanding the local language or the local fundamentals. 40% for application knowledge and 40% for the overall development. Does he have communication skill? Does he have a good personality? Can he do negotiations, etc., etc.? And this is something which all HEIs will have to develop in the students, so that the student can do group discussions, can do communications, can prepare PowerPoint slides to present themselves, etc., etc. And this is something which is very important, and this has to be done through the placement cell if you really want to give, what shall I say, to make the student industry fit. The teachers, student ratio, etc., which I just talked about is a must. Yeah, these are some things which we need to talk about. Now, both Shekhar and Akram are also talking on the NEP. And look at the funny part of the NEP 20. It's a document which runs into almost 70 pages. And there's only four lines in NEP 2020, which talks about HEI is becoming a global player. And but that is very important. How do we do that? We need to promote India as a country safe for women. We need to have infrastructure in terms of, like a 3-star, good food, quality food, good hostel facilities. While the foreigners love to have the Indian food and the Indian cuisine, but they also need a world class or at least a 3-star facility hostel. We need to have a good administration office which will really handhold the foreigner when he comes in. Accreditation is important, like the AASCB, AMBA. These type of global accreditations are very, very important. And we need to get faculties from abroad. But the cost is very high. So one of the strategies which I proposed was to have a cluster development whereby colleges in the neighborhood can come together, invite a faculty, to come in, and once the faculty comes in, the cost is shared by 4 or 5 or 6 faculties together, and he comes here, remains with us for about 3 months or so, delivers some lectures in one college, delivers some lectures in the second college. With the result, the students get a global perspective. And we can promote on same lines as medical tourism. Training program, as I explained earlier, is important. And to begin with, like the way ISB has, it had when it started, a certificate issued by ISB. It's 2 or 3 universities from US, and then that was really very useful, and they could attract a lot of global faculties as well as global students. Can we get chairs like the Bill Gates chairs? It's very difficult because in many of the HEIs, the Indian industrialists themselves do not want to form these chairs. But we need to work towards it. We need to get towards it. It might be useful to have one person stationed in the foreign country. But again, cost is very critical, and therefore we must have a consortium approach. I am harping on the consortium approach because the consortium approach will reduce the cost and will help students to market the Indian universities in foreign countries. And we must provide a good audio visual and a website which is really very good. Last but not the least, one person working from home on a sharing basis among the various consortiums, and we should target developing countries. Now, I can only tell you, what I said just now, the long-term strategies involves a huge amount of cost. It involves a huge amount of cost, and an individual HEI may not be able to finance it. But then even if we follow a few strategies like having a good infrastructure, good training programs, global faculties, I think we can become the Nalanda of the world. And this is what I see in the long run, a mix between industry and the HEI, really, giving a good impetus for us to become a global player. And with these few words, I would like to thank everyone for patient listening. And if you have any questions, you can write to me, you can ask me, and I'll be very glad to answer them. Thank you very much, and God bless all of you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. Now let us have our Sai. There's been a very great criticism of various things. And I'm sure, people like him will implement as being the head of a good private sector with all the, uh, you know, just we have to implement. And also, of course, when you see from a global perspective, there are a lot of things which are, highly creditable from an Indian point of view. As I again said, if Indian education system had not been as good as it is, so many CEOs would not be from all institutions. And the type of respect we govern throughout the world are far more than the type of reports which are being made. Many of the people themselves come and tell me that the reports we are told to make to show India in a lower light. And there are foreigners who come and say that, yes, we have to do something to see that be good and be seen to be good. We are good, but we are not seen to be as good as we are. Otherwise, we would not be whatever we are. The type of respect we command is something far above the type of reports we get. Now, Mr. Sai, you are from the industry, you are on an international level, you are in India, you are in Singapore, you are in Europe, you are in so many places. Would you please give your thoughts, give your suggestions? Since he has taken longer time, we'll extend by a few minutes. Please feel free to uh, you have to unmute.
Sorry, Shekhar, I got carried away by
Unmute.
my subject.
Don't. Unmute. Sai, unmute. Sai, you have to unmute.
Good evening, all.
Yeah.
And it's been a wonderful session which is going on right now. And then I'm really thrilled to say that I just want to start with the current affairs right now. In the sense, like today, there is a kind of clipping has come from the chairman level of Amazon, one of the world's leading retail industry. He's Jeff Bezos. He says that the 21st century belongs to India. So that's a kind of strong statement he has made that to us, irrespective of all our pitfalls and things, whether India is going to emerge as the major threshold for the entire international community. So this is the kind of like positive outlook. I just want to start with this my speech on this, and no doubt, education of paramount importance to an individual as well as society. The world is undergoing a rapid change in the knowledge landscape. So you know that big data analysis and kind of retail outlooks, and then the COVID-19 situation, everything which makes us to go forward in our entire thinking knowledge base as well as the kind of like practical knowledge base. So these are all the aspects which we need to take it up. So NEP 2020, which gives a proper framework towards the entire future outlook of India, and particularly this has got aligned with SDG 4, Goal 4. It's called under UNESCO. So which has got a various targets being set across, and then these targets has been already signed off by many of the countries, both OECD, Europe, as well as the American continents, where we are all aligned towards that. So that what will happen is that in future there is going to be a kind of rating of institution. It's going to be proper in framework, in the sense like today I'm not having a hedge over the other universities in across the globe because they have different parameters. I have different parameters. So for example, as Dr. Shekhar said that many of the guys who are all in the leading topmost post in the world, which are overall belongs to India, but unfortunately our Indian institutions are naming few like IITs, IIMs. Beyond that, there is not much in the like vicinity of the international people. So these are all the things which need to be raised out, and then it is going to be on par with international like universities and HIEs and kind of curriculums and things like that. But we are working towards that. This is a start by the government of India towards implementing this NEP 2020, and eventually we will be definitely having a good phase towards 2030, where we are having a certain landmark to finish off. So this is what my take on that one. First, I just want to put it across, and second thing is that there is opportunities to be provided to many of our students community as well as the professional community. In the sense, like I just want to share a couple of like recent affairs. One is called Miss Jayalakshmi. She is a 11th standard student, and she is going to NASA now actually to go and inspect everything. At the same time, they are going to put her on the board of entire like the planning and things like that. They want to explain to her the sense like how she has achieved once while she was playing some carom board on that. She seen some paper nearby, and then she seen that there is a person who has attended the NASA examination, and then he has achieved it. She's from deep south, not even from the city. So now she has got the like got into the kind of examination of the NASA. She has passed through it, and then now she is going to go and visit NASA soon. She's been supported by many of the NGOs to make that visit to US. She's a breadwinner for her family. The sense like those kind of happenings are all it's all happening in our part of world also, to see to it that the students are getting more of international like concentrations, and then how things are all happening and things like that. Other factor is that one called Alagu Pandya, his name is Alagu Rajan. Yeah, sorry. He has come from UK, and then got stuck in COVID in our place right now in India, particularly in Chennai. And then this man has started looking out for various opportunities and then things like that when he was stuck here. And then he started, giving some sort of advice to smart city programs, and like at the same time, even for the Chennai corporation, how to tackle that COVID-19 a different way, in a kind of like what you can say data-wise analysis and things like that, and then how to do the waste management program and things like that extremely well. And then he has been appointed as the consultant also for Chennai corporation. So those kind of talents are all emerging. But the way in which this has been mapped, actually, that is what the NEP 2020 is going to take forward and see to it that how our talent can be nurtured and then taken into the right perspective into the international world. Particularly education has got more of like importance for this entire developmental growth of the country, as well as the growth of the individual, as well as the growth of the world as well. So basically these are all the things which we are going to have, that youth population, particularly in India, which is going to be more than 600 million decades to come. So we are having the most of the youth population in the world in the next 10 years, and then we need to definitely reshape them towards the giving them the best of education, best of access to the international knowledge, and then make them to work on the good parameters to see that India is going to be among the largest developed countries in the world, in the sense like we are emerging as the third largest economy in the world. So this is going to be imminent. And then by 2030 and 2040 and 2050, they have certain maps under the NEP 2020 program where this is going to be made. And as Professor Gopal said that we need to have some sort of infrastructure to be fund to be created, actually, in the sense like there is allocation has not happened in the current budget, but that is not making any panic among ourselves, because we are having a baby now, 2020, NEP 2020, so just born. So we are going to eventually phase it out, number one. Number two is that this entire program is going to be driven under the like a participation program, rather than government to be fully involved in that. So under the Dr. Shekhar's model of like secured governance, where the participation will be coming from both industry as well as the like government, and this will be like channelized in such a way that all the educational platform has to be going to be unified, in the sense like there is going to be a 1,500 school to be selected, and then they are going to monetize first initially, completely monetize that, and then they want to give them the complete guidelines to them. And then in the advanced world, for example, Finland is the number one country in the world on the education system, actually. So basically in Finland, what they are following it up is that free education for them throughout across the say primary, secondary, and the higher education. And they also give a free meal also along with that. So even though it's a developed country, they take care of the education completely with their entire budget allocation towards that. They are the topmost country paying the highest to this teaching profession. So not even the like financiers or advocates, they are not getting anything like chartered accountants and all, but they are the teachers, the number one salary position in Finland. The other same thing like South Korea, which is emerging country in the education field, which has come almost third or fourth position right now in the international field. They are also putting a lot of efforts to see that the teacher student ratio and like the basically the enhancement of the education reaching the level of education to the, to the core, actually, in the sense like they covered almost 97% of the population. All these things are happening. And in our Singapore, for example, in 1957 itself, they promulgated saying that the government is going to take care of the education as a proper policy. They spend almost a maximum budget to allocation towards the education. The sense like next to defense budget, the education budget is in Singapore. So in Singapore, particularly, this entire infrastructure for the education system is being well governed by the government, and then they give a subsidies to all the primary, secondary, and higher education levels, as well as the policy is driven, picked up everybody so that everyone writes in the same exam. So there is no kind of different exams can be conducted or different question papers or different salary patterns. In the sense like today, one of our schools in neighborhood will have a 5,000 rupees per month salary. One school will be having 35,000 rupees salary. So the kind of teaching education as well as the kind of translation of knowledge to the students, which is not going to happen the same way. So based on the input by the teacher and to the student, that is the major factor which need to be addressed under the NEP 2020. And particularly, we are going to have that in a full-scale implementation, which is we are very positive about it. The second one is that on the summer training and the industry training, which Professor Gopal mentioned, that it is definitely a worthwhile consideration, because what happens now, all these IIMs and even the chartered accountancy course and everything will have industry training, and you'll have a kind of guest lecturer who is coming in. These are all the flavors which made us to come up in the life, in the sense like we studied one of the case studies of Arun ice cream, for example. He started as a candy man and then become a very big, one of the richest in Tamil Nadu right now. So these are all the kind of motivational aspects has to be given to the students, and student has to come out. So that is where the kind of more perspective has to be made. And particularly, as you said rightly, the industry has to come into the education, and then this coexist actually. So any research has happened, then the industry also to share it and then see to it that how the implementation is happening. So these are all things has to be made, and then we as an individual citizen need to contribute towards that, and then see to it that the government is getting that. So that's why the budget session also said that we are going to have lesser government, more of governance rather than the government. So governance has to be made from all of us to see to it that the policies implementation is properly happening. And then I mean, the budget allocation definitely is going to have improve in the in the coming years, to see to it that 2030, which is the first block which they made the NEP 2020 to achieve some of the results, which is going to happen. So this is what I just want to give a short and kind of policy outlook on that. And then anything which you wanted to have a discussion, we can further carry on.
Definitely, one small thing which you have to address is the industry academic collaboration. One thing is that we keep talking about it, not today, even ages ago, but things are not going the way it should be going. Okay. So industry, this collaboration means many times it means that somebody who is not so well needed by industry, he will go and teach in academic institution, which is not the what it should be. Not that one is expecting the high-tech scientists to come, because they are also not good teachers. Many of the people who are high-tech in their own industrial field, they may not be good teachers. An industry person who's got a flair for teaching and who is good at saying what it is, some rating has to be done by the industry that this particular person is good. Not only is good here, and he will also complement and be good there. The best need not be a best teacher. A teaching has a different this. Second thing which is required is every industry has to enroll all the industries within 5 kilometers of its location. This itself will solve 80% of the problem. Once you are enrolling them officially, then the student right at the day one, I have experimented this in few places very successfully. By that, what happens, the student right at the day one, especially engineering students, I'm not talking typically of the art student, engineering, science, all the healthcare, medical and all, they will have a sense of belonging to that institution. No salary, nothing. He or she carries a visiting card of that particular place. Goes there Saturday, Sunday. They are always welcome there. The academic institution starts monitoring their progress. What do they think? What they also feel, oh, that DY Patil is my institute. There are 10 of my students are there. It may be a dukanwala. Even he will feel that one student of mine is there in that particular institution, and he will learn enough to know what he said that is there. Then live experience comes. The live feeling of oneness comes. And then each one thinks the other is complementing my requirement. They are complementing to satisfy them. These are all very small baby steps, but it has got a different impact. Other thing is that we have to convey the right set of meaning to the students. Students have to be told many times, even when I give this type of lecture to students are surprised by the facts and figures. Many times students are told we are not good. Okay, and it goes into their head. When a teacher says or somebody around, teacher has to say that this is what is good. This is what is our legacy. This is what we are in terms of this thing. So that, in that, half glass full, half glass empty. If you talk of the half glass empty, not the half glass full, I'm not saying to overdo half glass full. Yes, something which is defect has to be shown as defect. But something which is good has to be shown to them properly. Otherwise, even now, one of the NASA's, even you said something about NASA, even many of my own students are big persons in NASA. And they are all fully grown in some remote colleges in India. But the poor remote college India doesn't get the credit of that person being successful there. Because finally somebody who has done the last 6-month course there, they take the full credit. This is my student. So we don't take credit for our own. Even if every education institution, including DY Patil, if it lists the successful student they have got, which they must be having, but publicizes it, tells the future student, this is a legacy you have to take. This is what you have to do. And you have to keep now till last year, I have got X number of students in X number of jobs, X number of profiles. It will carry a huge image. Even the smallest school has got some big achievers. And that has to be highlighted. And last point is about funding. In secured governance, when you mentioned what is the secured governance funding in terms of its says is that you tell all the government department don't buy any place for you. Any academic institution, it has got enough extra FSI. That FSI will be government department, which will pay the rent. So the permanent rent coming will ensure that the cycle of funds come. Today an academic institution is bound in a small compound. And then whosoever private owner, this owner, he has spent the last pie to just build. Then he says, oh, after this I have to pay the salary also. Where will it come? Because salary cannot come from the tuition fees. Tuition fees is too small. So there is no fund flow. So there's an automatic crunch. Like you rightly said, the salaries are, like Professor Gopal also said, the salaries are all peanuts, which is not good. How can an academic institution pay so low? It has to pay equivalent to the same, because education is also that way some form of an industry. But if this routine comes, because today education institutions get even 5 to 8 FSIs, and they are allowed 20% commercialization. Make the commercialization somewhere in the corner so it doesn't really disturb. And this can totally pay all the things which we have calculated. In fact, it makes it a profit center rather than this center. And request the government department, please close down all your offices and pay rent here. Okay, it can even be made mandatory because there are enough people of good influence who are there. Because you can give a little more place to them. Then your permanent revenue comes not from the salary, not from the tuition fees, but from this additional source, which is coming because you are education institution. That should never be sold. So and also, as I said, your own alumni should be taken. Any one of us, if our school comes and requests us, we'll pay some money. So any alumni should be made activated. Any of our, innovation center, people like Gopal would have such a good innovation center that, they will do wonders for you. And one of them would be, I'm not saying Bill Gates, would do something good, would be one of those things which will be something good. So maybe a last concluding remark from Professor Gopal and you, and then we will, because we already passed our time. Professor Gopal.
Shekhar, what you said is, Dr. Shekhar, what you said is really correct. And I'm glad you highlighted some of these points. Funding is a big issue for us. But the problem is, when you talked about government places in our colleges and all that, there are some challenges in that, because if you look at the urban area, the FSI is not there. And if you look in the rural areas, the amount of space is really, very high. How do we balance all of this? These are some of the issues. And for me, as an educationalist, one of the biggest challenges is to provide placement to the employer, to the students. And therefore, this industry-institute interaction, which you mentioned, is something which is very, very critical. And I think the idea of yours that we should get, attached to some 7, 8 industries in the nearby area is something which is laudable and which is worth thinking. And if we follow some of these, I think we can become, our education system is not at all bad because many of the students go from here to go to the US. And if you look at Bill Pichai itself was a member of Indian education system. He did it from Madras and one of the colleges, then went to IIMs and all this, or IITs and all this. So our college system is good, but it needs to be publicized. We need to talk a lot about it. We need to change the image of our country. Yeah. And if we do that, I think I'm quite sure, as I said, we can become the Nalanda of the world. And that is something which I would love to see. Thank you very much, Dr. Shekhar. Thank you, Dr. Akram. Thank you, Dr. Sai. And all my friends. God bless all of you all.
Mr. Sai, concluding remarks.
Yeah. Actually, the system integration has to be made in such a way that in today's world, the integration is going to be the key challenge for the entire government. In the sense, like how the policy is going to be driven towards the, like to the tiniest part of the entire final end. Actually, in the sense, like all my primary schools, secondary schools, all to be mapped up now. So the government is in a proper initiative under the NEP 2020 with the kind of initial offering of 15,000 schools they selected right now under this budget right now to have an initial, run through about NEP 2020. They also started 100 Sainik schools. So these are all the major factors which they are making it up. So we are definitely hoping that this entire, like concerns of us, even though we are the best in education in the world across many centuries, like for millions of centuries, we are the number one in education, but we have lost our prominence during some time in between. So we are now gaining back again. Then we want to effectively conclude that this is going to be a much more better world for all the Indians who are all living here. Thank you.
Thank you. We are the educators, we are the teachers for the world. That way we will conclude today's thing. Thank you, Professor Gopal. Thank you, Sai. Thank you, all the listeners. We will take it to the next level and make education our key to growth. Where education is good, there is nothing which can stop us to be the #1 country in the world. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, sir.